Hello, everybody. This is the second lecture of the Duino Elegies. We're going to be doing the second elegy today. And today is going to be a lot about angels and love and impermanence. So let's begin. Beauty can be terrifying, but it takes a kind of presence to maintain that level of beauty which humans can only ever dream of reaching. For Rilke, angels are these presences who are constantly dispersing and absorbing their beauty like mirrors. But as human beings we fade and evaporate. Quote, everything we are rises away from us. End quote. So how do we live knowing we are this impermanent being? What about love? Can love find a way to prove us wrong? Rilke presents in this elegy three kinds of love. Those who lavish in the other until they can't anymore, those who grow through one another, and those who vanish. Quote, when the other takes over completely, end quote. Yet what is it about the human touch that drives us into ecstasy? Rilke states it's because that touch lasts. But it seems we are once more fooled by love and that promise of duration. It is inevitable that we as lovers change and draw away from the original roles we first fell into. For love and separation do not differ in substance from ourselves. Rilke begs that we remember our hands and how weightless they are. We would benefit to remind ourselves of these limitations that, quote, all we can do is touch one another like this, end quote. But is this enough? As we approach the end of the second elegy, we are left wondering, as Rilke also wonders, where can we leave our hearts? Because neither we or the others we have loved can contain it. Nor does it suffice to leave it with those who could tame or master it. But rather for Rilke, he says we should look for, quote, something pure, contained, narrow, human, our own small strip of orchard between river and rock, end quote. But can we find this balance? Something that is utterly human between fluidity and duration. And that's the end of the lecture for the second elegy. I think there is a lot to think about here concerning impermanence, where to place our hearts. I think Rilke proposes a very interesting argument from the standpoint of how, as lovers, we change, but at the same time there is this feeling of duration. So there is this kind of confliction going on about there's duration and yet there's change. There's impermanence, yet there's eternity. And I think that's why it ends interesting when he talks about, can we find something human between river and rock? And I interpret the river as being something fluid and, something perhaps maybe impermanent, right? Constant change. And then rock as something sturdy and enduring. But to find something in between that is very human for us, not placing it in someone that is godlike to master our hearts, which I think Rilke would not approve of, but something very human. How can we have a love that's very human of us? Rather than making the ones we love into a god and then while avoiding making the others we love into a god, while also at the same time acknowledging that this love has a tendency to arise out of ourselves and the ones we have chosen to contain it. Where do we do with that? And I think he leaves a lot of things to reflect upon. And so I would suggest, I would say that this elegy is very much stresses on the idea of impermanence and kind of mourning this impermanence, but at the same time, it leaves us with questions, and it kind of slaps us with some reality about impermanence, and yet there's some slight hope. There's hope in this. Yeah, but I like how typically Rilke ends it with, how do we as human beings do this? How do we go through about discovering this? He kind of reverses it and places it back into our hands. Knowing what we know now about this impermanence, what do we do with it? Where do we place our hearts? What do we do? So if anything, I like this elegy because it kind of makes us, kind of snaps us awake, and yet it still places the power in our hands in some fashion. That he wants us to look for, something of this sort. But anyways, thank you guys for listening, and take care.